So I know a lot of us have been affected in so many different ways by what we're facing and being affected by in the world today. But I just wanted to take a moment and pause and just together remind us all of something that we probably all need to hear. It's gonna be okay. And since we've been so bombarded by the warnings and the precautions and the unforeseen, disruptions to our normal lives, I bet most of us haven't heard that phrase in quite a while. But it's going to be okay. And rather than lean into the misfortune and the negativity of what that can mean, I want to offer hope that as we're going through these circumstances, there is hope for a more promising tomorrow. And I realize, some of our situations are unimaginable and have life-altering implications. But the good news is you're not alone. And actually in the Bible, many times, God makes the promise that He is never going to leave us and never forsake us. He says, I am with you always. You're never alone. And while community can be great as well, I believe that promise is one that God wants us to stand on in times just like this. In fact, there's a story in the book of Mark, in chapter 4, where Jesus reinforces this promise. And the story goes that He's been teaching by the sea, and when He's all wrapped up and finished, He tells His disciples, His closest followers, let's go, we're gonna cross over to the other side of the sea. So they hop in their boats, and as they're crossing, it says that a great windstorm comes. So the wind is crashing the waves or moving the boat all over the place, and even water starts to get into the boats. But meanwhile, to everyone's surprise, Jesus is at the back of the boat, just sleeping peacefully. And I bet the disciples were just panicked. Jesus, what are you thinking? What's happening? Do you even care about the fact that we're about to be men overboard? But I imagine in a very calm and collected way, Jesus gets up and He speaks to the storm, saying, peace, be still. Can you imagine in that moment, He speaks to the storm. He commands the storm to be peaceful and be still. Now, once He says it, the storm stops, everything is calm again, and then He's not done. He turns to the disciples and He says, but why are you afraid? Now, I can't imagine that this is something, he clearly saw that this was something that incited a lot of fear in them. And yet His question was why? See, the troubling thing with fear is that first and foremost, it disrupts our peace. And then it contradicts the reassurance that we have in the promises that God makes and the things that He says. So while often our initial reaction is fear, I think Jesus is asking us to choose differently in this moment. He's saying to the disciples as they're freaking out, understandably so, I'm here though. You don't need to be afraid. But even in the midst of that fear, His reassurance is that because I'm here, because I'm with you, you're gonna be okay. You're going to be okay. Now, granted, we've got to deal with the storm. Jesus took care of that for them, and rightly so, we've got to actually confront and deal with the realities of our lives. But the promise in that is that no matter what's happening, we're still gonna get to our destination. They're still gonna get to where they're going if we stay the course, so long as we trust and choose to believe and remember that Jesus is with us, and when He is, everything is fine. So I believe that is what God wants to encourage us in today, and that's what I want to encourage you in. So practically speaking, how can we choose trust? How can we choose peace, even when it's difficult and even when things are uncertain? Maybe it looks like still finding reasons to smile and have joy and celebrate. Even though we can't get too close to our friends, you can still be mindful of the people around you and be considerate of them. And maybe when you are feeling that fear, maybe a good personal check would be to say, okay, why am I feeling this fear? Just like Jesus asked His disciples, what's happening on the inside? What's the root of this? And if it is a feeling of uncertainty, or if it's a feeling of, I have no idea where my paycheck is gonna come from next or when, I pray right now for peace, that you would have peace of mind as you think through and work through those challenges. And I believe that God sees you. In fact, I know it. He knows you, He sees you, He hears you. And He's fighting for your peace of mind in the midst of all of this. And so as you walk day by day, each step, it may not seem like it in the moment, but everything is going to be okay. You're going to be okay.